Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build of the Estes Sentinel, somewhat from scratch, well, partially from scratch, I guess. In any event, I've sanded some of the kit, but it seemed like a decent idea to actually show the process, right? So the top half I've already done, and you can see there's a pretty significant difference in the color of the wood where I've sanded and where I haven't. This is basically white. It's how I know I filled it in with the wood fill. I don't want it to remain white. Largely, I want to take almost all of the fill off. And if there's a good example of what, the whole point of this is, it's the body tube. So if you recall, most of the body tube in between these fins was white. But I've sanded virtually all of it off, except for, and you can see, I didn't purposely do this, but the entire point was to fill in the spirals, and that's the only place where it's still white. This is basically what the whole plan is with the wood as well. I want to fill in the grooves that are caused by the grain of the balsa, and you don't really need to leave much of the wood fill on afterwards in order to accomplish that. In fact, you want most of it to go away. So I'm going to do the remainder of the fins. Among other things, I'm going to sand the tube here just to get the rest of it off. I've done some of it, but just to illustrate the point, this does come off pretty quickly and pretty easily. It does make a big old mess, so I have a piece of newsprint down to just catch some of the sawdust, or whatever it is. I guess you can call it sawdust, right? It's wood fill. It's kind of liquid wood, maybe? I don't know. And that pretty much takes care of the body tube. So before I even start the sand, I'm just going to run the sandpaper over my rounded edges and just kind of make sure that, here, there's a blob of the wood fill that needs to go. That's actually a fairly significant one. Most of it is pretty minimal. But of course, the idea here is you don't want the wood fill, if you ended up with a little bit of a blob on the fin, well, in theory, we shaped the fins, so we don't want them to be unshaped by the wood fill. So I'm just going to do that first. I do need to get the back end, but get that in a little bit. Alright, so sandpaper. That's actually a good question. What grit is this? Does it say? I think it's like 440. But pretty much any fine grit should be pretty good here. So for this part, I'm going to try to go in circles where I can. The upper fins are pretty much too narrow to do this. I'm going to try to sand in a circular pattern here to try to be uniform, and if there is any scuffing that I do, I'd like it to be fairly consistent. If I just go back and forth, I could end up, in theory, although I haven't ever really noticed it, putting in a kind of a pattern into the wood, which is completely the opposite of what I wanted to do. Alright, so, I generally, quick little pass here, I'm not going to get it all the way down to the original color of the wood, but most of the white is gone. I'm going to get the back edge here of this fin quickly, somewhat off camera. Avoidable. Alright, so continuing the process. This does make a decent amount of dust, so if you are standing in a circle, it tends to just kind of fall off to the side. I don't know, if you're standing back and forth, probably does too, but once I'm done here, the newsprint, well, just kind of fold it up and dump all this stuff. got a little bit of glue there earlier. That needs to be removed. I, of course, am only getting one face of this right now, so I'm going to eventually have to change the way the rocket is oriented so I can get the rest of it. But a little bit at a time. Do a quick little test just to feel how it feels. If there are obvious parts that you didn't sand completely, you should be able to figure that out just by touching it. If it feels pretty smooth, then you're probably in good shape. I think you're going to find, I've found anyway, that even when it feels smooth, it isn't really, and there's probably going to be some grain, some noticeable grain, even afterwards, which is unfortunate, but given the limitations of both my skill in painting and the technology I have available here, the quality of my paint job is not going to be flawless. And a little bit of grain left over I can live with. I just don't want all the grain. Alright, so there's... that's not smooth. Probably use a little bit more. All right, that's passable for now. While it would be super exciting to watch me sand the other half of it, basically going to be more of the same. So I don't think I'm going to take the time. Naturally, of course, I do need to flip the rocket, and I end up holding it like this and sanding this side. And then it'll be ready for the next phase, which is I'm going to put a coat of sanding sealer on here. This is basically paint, or it comes out like paint, so I have my paintbrush and a little bit of scrap there to load up, use as a palette. I'm not going to do that on camera either. I've done that in other videos if you really want to watch me paint something. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Sanding sealer, that's going to take several days for me to be ready to sand it. Like 3 is usually how many I leave. Sand it down, and then you have to make the decision. You know, are you happy with the level of fill you've done, or do you want to put another set of wood fill and sanding sealer down? Chances are I'm only going to do it once. Probably if you really, really want a super awesome finish, you should probably do it twice. I've done that very rarely, honestly. It takes so long, and I'm going to end up putting one more layer of paint, primer paint, spray paint on before the final coat anyway, and that's going to get sanded down, so that's going to accomplish something too. And you know, ultimately there's still going to be a little bit of grain probably even after all that. So yeah, you certainly could do it again. I seriously doubt I'm going to. I'm probably going to be too impatient. So in any event, I suspect that the next video will not be for a while in real life, but in that time I will have primed it, sanded it, and put a white gloss coat on, because this rocket it's white. That's the only color it is. And then it'll be time for decals. So, alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.